Ashley Burch took some time out of her insanely busy schedule to sit down for a conversation with me about growing up an indoor kid, her writing process, voice acting, and the connection her and I share to this country's opiate epidemic. Ashley is a brave, honest, soulful person, and we were able to dig really deep. Enjoy. Ashley Burch.
Brian Foster.
Hello.
Brian W. Foster?
I don't care.
What does the W stand for? Do you not want to reveal that? You don't have to.
Wayne.
No, really?
Yeah.
That's great.
That's my middle name, the one I go by now. No more questions, Your Honor. Wow. What do you think?
Oh, that's delightful.
It's a Naked and Famous.
It's delicious.
It's delicious, right?
It's great.
You asked for mezcal. I was
love
so
mezcal.
excited because I too love mezcal. We haven't had a mezcal drink on the show.
Perfect.
I talked to my bartender friends about what we should make for you, and I went to New York and they had me try this, and I was like, that's it.
It's so good.
That's it. It's amazing, right?
Yeah.
Yellow chartreuse, Aperol, lime juice, mezcal.
And it's
so easy to make at home.
And it's not too sweet.
Not too sweet, not too strong.
Love. And shaken, which I love shaken drinks.
Shaken.
So this is the ideal drink for me.
Served in a chilled glass.
So lovely.
What if we swapped haircuts? Because I feel like you would be great with this haircut.
I actually feel like I would actually like that haircut, I think.
You think so? It's very easy to maintain. Takes about an hour a day. You grew up in Phoenix, correct? Or you were born there?
Born and raised, yeah.
What's Phoenix like? I've spent a little bit of time there.
The way I describe Phoenix is that it's like one large tire store. It's just an endless... The way that you feel in a tire store is the way the Phoenix feels.
It smells like rubber.
Smells like rubber. You're like, it's just that.
You get out of the car in Phoenix, you're like, I'm in Phoenix.
I guess I have to.
Yeah.
But lots of taco places with a slightly different name. So like Filiberto's, Juliaberto's, Roberto's, scattered about.
Yeah, bear toes.
Bear toes.
Just bear toes.
Toes.
Yeah, toes.
No, toes there. And it's very hot. So you stay inside and you play video games all day, basically.
It's kind of like people who grew up in the Midwest,
Totally.
or in Ohio in the middle of January.
What else are you gonna do?
You can't go anywhere.
My parents were also very protective, overly protective. So there wasn't really like a go outside and go walk to your friend's house. And they were like convinced if I walked even like a 10-minute route that I would get scooped.
Really?
Yeah.
Kidnapped, murdered, whatever.
Yeah, the whole nine yards.
My parents were like, just go outside and come back tomorrow. Like just go play, come back smelling like dirt. I don't care.
I do really wonder what my life would be like if I had that as a. I mean, I'm happy. I'm very grateful for all the things that I do have now. And I wonder because everything in my fucking career has come from playing video games. Everything. So
that's true.
It's really weird.
It's kind of all
everything
sort of come out of that.
Yeah. So ultimately ended up great.
Yeah.
But I mean, video games and I guess probably writing fan fiction because I started writing.
Yeah. What were the first things you would want to write fan fiction about?
Sailor Moon.
Yep.
But I wouldn't have any action lines. So it would just be dialogue.
Okay. Yeah.
So there was a lot of exposition, as you can imagine.
Yeah.
Final Fantasy.
Here we go. Let's go. Did you write some All That fanfic or something?
No, I wrote fanfic about Batman Beyond.
You did?
Yes, about is his name Terry, the dude that
Sure.
is the new Batman?
I think so. Yeah. Will Friedle's gonna murder me because that's his character.
Did he play?
That's him, yeah.
Oh, I feel like I shouldn't.
His
tell you
name's
this
Jerry.
Then.
I think it's Jerry.
It's Gerald. It's definitely Gerald. But I wrote. He has.
You wrote Batman Beyond fanfic?
Yes,
That's
in which
next
Jerry Gerald has cancer. I wrote that.
Wait, why?
I don't know.
But
I don't know.
Old Batman is already on his way out. You're gonna kill off new
I don't
Batman?
know. I really can't. There's no justification. I didn't even know anyone that had cancer. I just thought, ooh, the viewers on fanfiction.net are going to eat this up. So I...
Were you uploading this stuff?
Oh, absolutely.
I wrote Jurassic Park fanfic.
Can you please tell me what it was about?
I don't remember.
You don't?
But I do remember I read the first book and The Lost World before I saw the movies.
Uh-huh.
I didn't get to see the movies till later because I was very, my parents were very conservative and, even a PG-13 movie was sometimes off limits.
Oh, really? Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that level. And so I read the books, and then I was like, oh man, I want there to be a third book. So I kind of just wrote a third, like, Jurassic Park book.
How long is it?
Oh, it's not long. It's like 20 pages. I don't have it anymore. I was like
I wish you did.
13 years old, but yeah.
That's amazing.
Fanfic's fun because it's
great.
It's kind of an entry into, because you obviously went on to be a writer.
Yeah.
And it's an exercise.
It absolutely is.
It's an exercise.
It totally is.
Yeah, people shit all over it because it can be too corny or too sexy or too whatever.
Right,
but
yeah.
so can regular movies and so can regular TV shows and books. They can all be too whatever.
And so much of what we're making now is fan fiction fucking anyway.
Mm-hmm.
Like all the Marvel movies are fan fiction.
The new Star Wars movies are
Star Wars is
fan
fiction.
Yeah.
I mean, writing for Adventure Time felt like writing fan fiction.
Because you were already a fan.
I was already a fan.
Yeah.
So, yeah, it's a great exercise, I think.
The first thing you remember really sitting down to write would be like fan fiction?
Yes, absolutely. Yeah, and then I did that for a long time. And I also played forum RPGs.
Yeah.
So there was, some amount of writing involved in that.
Yeah.
But yeah, it was all through shit like that.
What kind of a student were you in school?
God, annoyingly, I was such a good student.
You
And there's
were?
there's
always a toss-up.
there's no reason for it. That's what makes me so mad about it. I would get so stressed out. I had to be straight A. And it mattered not at all.
Was there pressure from your folks
from my mom
to do well? From your
Mm-hmm.
mom? Yeah.
Yeah.
That's usually the way it goes. And your mom is
Thai.
Thai,
Thai
right.
and East Indian.
Yeah, that's cool.
Yeah. So
That's how you ended up with such amazing hair.
So she fulfills that stereotype of putting way too much academic pressure on her children.
Yeah. When it came time for college and stuff,
yeah.
What were you thinking at the end of high school? I had an existential crisis at the end of high school.
Really?
What were you? What happened there when you graduated and you're like, this is that crossroads of my life where it's not that what I'm pursuing right now is going to be what I'm going to do for the rest of my life, but you want to have a direction. Did you have a direction?
I felt like I had to go to college. It actually didn't even feel like a crossroads because it was something my parents had talked about forever. And I think it was because there was a situation in which my dad was up for a promotion and it was between him and someone with a college degree and he didn't have one.
Mm.
So I think that really stuck in both my parents' minds and they talked constantly about whatever you want to do, we support you, but you have to go to college first.
We want you to have opportunities. Yeah.
So it felt like something I had to do. But the main crossroads was that I didn't want to stay in Arizona anymore. And it was back when ASU was just handing out full rides.
Yeah.
Oh, you get one and you get one and you get one, which is insane to think about. And my brother took that route and ended up saving a bunch of money. So that was great for him. But I just couldn't fathom staying in Arizona for more time. And I knew I wanted to try to do voiceover. So
Is that from your love of video games?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Specifically playing Metal Gear Solid, I think was the first fully voiced video game that I had played.
Mm.
And Kojima did that thing where he would be like, Solid Snake, David Hayter. And I was like, who's David Hayter? And then I looked it up and I was like, oh my God. It was the first time it clicked where I was like, people voice these characters.
Right.
I want to do that.
Yeah.
So I knew I wanted to do that. My friend, my very good friend Justin, who does all the important stuff on Hey Ash.
Mm-hmm.
His mom is a saint and was just helping a bunch of his friends with college stuff because she just knew a lot about it. And so she actually helped me the most with my application and the essays and to figure out where to go. And I ended up going to a liberal arts school because they gave out more scholarships than state schools, but it's just the amount of money you're looking at.
Yeah.
And when you have this free ride over here,
mm-hmm.
but in this place that you don't want to be in anymore, that you feel like, I felt like if I came here that I would actually be able to
do something.
Yeah. So that was the main scary thing. And my parents were not into the idea of me spending that much money, which makes sense. Now I'm I'm so in the camp of don't go to college. Don't do it.
Student
it's too
loans,
much money.
I know.
But it just totally depends.
Yeah.
But that was my main thing, which I was like, am I really going to spend this much fucking money?
Mm-hmm.
And I did.
And you came out here?
And I came out here.
Went to
Occidental College. Our only claim to fame really is that I think Ben Affleck went there and almost immediately left, and Barack Obama went there and then almost immediately left.
Really?
So we had a lot of exodus.
Is the cafeteria really bad? Is that what?
I don't know what it is. I enjoyed my time there once I found my folks, once I found my people, and I think that's just the case anywhere. But I didn't have I wasn't like rip roaring. I didn't have like a really crazy college experience. It was like, I think I came expecting like.
I can tell by the fact you said rip roaring. I didn't have one of those rip roaring.
I did this. Can we note that I did this?
I did. I noted that.
Who does this apart from 70-year-old like Jewish men? No one.
Game show hosts, I think. Hey, you win.
Yeah, so I think I wanted to go and like have an academic. I was like the fucking nerd one. I wanted to go and have like an academic experience. People wanted to get drunk and get laid because of course they did.
Of course they did. But you wanted to have a study party.
Yeah, I wanted to learn.
You wanted to learn. Moving to LA like after, because had you lived anywhere else besides Phoenix and then straight to LA?
I went straight from Phoenix to LA.
It can be a little bit of a culture shock.
It was really hard for me.
In what ways?
Well, because I was an indoor kid, and again, my parents were very protective, so I just had never strayed very far from home. I have like anxiety, like capital A, diagnosed anxiety or whatever, and I had my first panic attack in college because it was just so much transition all at once. Like, school was so much harder than I thought it was going to be because I realized in retrospect, I was fucking coasting through high school. Like, so much of it, I feel like, was just the teacher like you? And do they feel like you put in enough effort? But in college, they were like, no, you actually have to, like, make an argument and, like, have logic and cite things. So I got my first, boo-hoo, I got my first C. Oh, and I was like, but to me, like, academic achievement was linked with like self-worth.
Yes.
So getting a C was like, you're garbage. So I had and I didn't know anyone. I didn't really relate to anyone yet. I just wasn't clicking with anyone. And I'd never lived on my own before. And I was in a new city and I didn't have a car at the time. So I couldn't really get around anywhere. And even getting around places because LA traffic is like on a whole other level.
It's insane. Yeah.
So it was just a lot of transition, and it was really, really hard for me for like a year, probably, maybe a little bit more. And then I joined the school newspaper.
Oh, you did?
Yeah.
as a contributor, as a fashion expert.
The great hair column.
Yeah.
I think I became the editor of the opinion section because no one wanted to work for the Occidental Weekly.
Why? It's just a school paper. Nobody cares.
School paper. We didn't even have a journalism degree, so no one was serious about it, and it was not a good paper.
Yeah.
I became editor-in-chief eventually, and I worked really hard, but it wasn't a good paper.
Yeah.
But it was
practice,
so fun.
Probably.
Yeah, it was good. It was good practice being, managing people, and then I found my people there.
I feel like when I clicked with LA was when I found my people. I think that's what you need here. Yeah. You need to, everyone is trying to make it in whatever form that looks like for them.
Right.
Someone that moves here to be a costumer, someone that moves here to be a writer, an actor, everyone's trying to get paid to do what they love. And that individual journey does not lend itself often to rich, long-lasting, deep relationships. Right. And when you find those, it can be the moment of change. It can be the moment of, okay, maybe I can survive this wasteland.
Absolutely. I don't think you can do it without that. Yeah. I don't know how you could do it.
Yeah, we as humans we need each other to survive and to evolve and to figure out what we're doing anyway. And if you're coming out here to work in such a competitive field or industry or series of industries,
right.
You need allies, you need friends, you need people to call you on your bullshit.
Yes.
When you were writing for an editor-in-chief for the newspaper for Occidental College, were you doing any other writing on the side? Were you thinking, I want to pursue this? Or was it, because you ended up being an actor and a writer.
Right.
Your love of VO comes from video games, as you said. How did that transition end up happening to where you went, I'm going to pursue this?
I think, originally when I was really young, I wanted to be a singer. I thought I was going to be a singer. And then in 8th grade, was auditioning for the class musical. And to do that, you had to act, basically. And so our teacher, she had us audition in front of literally everyone else, which I still can't tell if it was cruel or brilliant or both. I don't know.
Maybe a little bit of both. I'm getting anxiety thinking about having to do that.
So I I was like, well, singing I'm good, but I never acted before in my life. But literally getting up, and I was stuttering through it. But even still, there was some weird thing that like came online in my brain where I was like, I like this. And I think I actually, despite all of the nervous energy that I had, there's something there. And that was when the switch happened.
Wow.
And I think that plus, I think I replayed Metal Gear Solid. And I was like, this confluence of things is what I want to do. But writing, I didn't even consider, I honestly think it was partially a gender thing where in my head, I was like, I hadn't seen it modeled anywhere. Like you see female actors all over the place, but I had never even fucking heard of a female writer. So I was like, that's just not something that I can do. Even though I'd been writing fan fiction, and at that point I'd been writing Hey Ash, I was still like, I only started writing Hey Ash, I think, in our second season. And I was still always, I couldn't look at something on my own and go, this is good enough. I had to like send it to Anthony and Justin and get approval. So it wasn't until Adventure Time, I think, actually, Kent Osborne, who was the head writer and the voice director, because I had done a voice on Adventure Time, and Kent and I had become friends. Penn Ward left, and they were looking for a person to fill in the writer's room to take that role. Not as Penn Ward, but as a writer.
Right.
And he was like, do you want to come in and test? That was like the first time, which is pretty high stakes now.
It is, yeah. That's pretty awesome, yeah.
And then getting that job, I was like, oh, okay, maybe this is something I can do, but I really didn't think that it was even a viable path for me.
Yeah, it is rare in this town that you hear about female writers that are, I don't want to say worth mentioning because not their worth, but I mean like that actually make it into the mentions.
Which I think it's changing a lot now, which I think is so amazing and wild. Like I know so many female writers now, and so many hit shows that are coming out are like famously female run.
Female showrunners, female writers.
Female writers. The amount that Broad City alone has done, you know what I mean?
Broad City, I love Broad City so much.
It's so good, but the amount that just that show alone has done for the industry, it's pretty wild.
It's changing. Things are changing, for the better.
Yeah.
Because it's not that women are taking all the jobs, it's just they're finally getting an
There's an equalization
they're finally
happening,
getting a seat at the table. I think ultimately it's not just a man's world anymore.
Yeah.
Voiceover is so interesting to me because it's such a small, tight-knit community.
Yeah.
And I'm surrounded by a lot of voiceover people. And I'm always hearing people ask, how do I get in? How did you get in? What do I do?
Right.
I feel like I can do accents. I feel like I can do all this stuff. You have such an intimate connection to it because of being an indoor kid. And those were sort of your adventures. And those were sort of your, in some ways, view into the outside world, being a little bit sheltered. And why specifically voiceover for you?
I loved and continue to love animation and video games.
To consume them?
Yes. Yeah. I feel like an adult child in a lot of ways because like the films that I make sure that I see are like Spider-Man Into the Spider-Verse and the Lego Movie, which are excellent films, right?
They are, yeah.
I love complex emotional stories told in mediums that are accessible to many, many people.
Wow.
Which something like Into the Spider-Verse does really beautifully, you know?
Completely.
When something has a breadth of audience where like adults are getting dragged to see it because kids want to see it or whatever it happens to be, that you have such an opportunity to reach so many people and the power of that, especially with so much is being made now.
Yes.
Where you're like,
yeah,
what fucking the thing that I want to make, you know, why does it matter? Why should it exist? Or how's it going
to cut through the noise?
Yeah.
I think about that all the time.
How is it helping people? Is it helping people?
Yeah. There's too much stuff. But you also talk about how video games helped with your anxiety.
Yeah.
And so there's an intimate connection there to that thing of going like, this type of art helped me figure out myself. I want to make art that helps other people figure out themselves.
Yeah. And I feel like the stuff that I like and the stuff that I gravitate toward has a broader audience. But yeah, I do feel like there's a responsibility maybe of trying to say something, try to showcase something, I
think there is. There's, the reason we tell stories are to, there's cautionary tales, there's tragedies, there's all these different types. And you want to cover the scope of the human experience.
Mm-hmm.
But it goes back to me of that same thing of I get changed by stuff that I read and stuff that I watch and stuff that it starts the conversation, like we were saying. It starts me down a path of changing my mind about things, opening my worldview up, maybe learning something about people that I didn't know before, or a group of people. I watch a lot of documentaries for that reason.
Right.
And we just we're attracted to stories that hit us hard.
Yeah.
You know, when I walk out of a theater and I'm like, oh man, that got me.
Yeah.
It changes you.
Yeah.
And you want to replicate that and do that for other people.
Yeah.
Yeah. When you're sitting down to write, whether it's something that you've come up with, whether it's something that somebody's asked you to write, obviously your IMDb is a beautiful collage of it's just fun. You look at it, you go, every one of these is a super fun gig. Like you've done well in that way, that you've been able to just kind of slide into some awesome gigs and work hard.
Lucky,
and like when you're sitting down to write, what's your biggest challenge? Is it distractions? Is it getting out of your own head? Is it, what is it for you?
It's definitely getting out of my own head. It's definitely like, because I have that internal voice that's like, why you? Why your voice? Why is it important? Why, and I think a certain amount of that is okay, is helpful, is good to think about, and then too much of it, which I can have sometimes, is debilitating. Where you can talk yourself out of writing anything, I've
done it.
You know what I mean? Whether you're like, oh, it's derivative or whatever, or it's not saying anything, it's because there is a perfectionist tendency. I think that often is coupled a lot with people that have anxiety, And so I think, getting out of my own way and having a sort of trust of the process. Because it's not like the first time you shit something out, it's not, there's never a first draft that you stick with. No. You shouldn't,
You shouldn't, yeah.
You should rework something and be willing to rework something until moments before it's being filmed or recorded or whatever. You know what I mean? You should have that, not to an insane degree, so that it's like you're waiting, that your cast is waiting for script. You know what I mean? There's
procrastination and letting your heart be open to the possibilities of the day. Yeah.
So that's the thing that I really need to keep working on, is trusting the process and trusting enough in my ability, even if I don't have that intrinsic trust, to trust from the external evidence of I've gotten hired X amount of times. I've gotten rehired X amount of times. I've, whatever. I've sent these things to people that I trust and I've gotten good feedback, and I know that they would tell me if it was shit and blah, blah, blah.
Right.
So I think that's the main thing. And I think part of that is like experience. Dealing with that partially is experience, and also using tools, which is why like all of the story structure things, there's no one set thing that anyone should do, I don't think. But I think the benefit of it is it gives you enough of a formula so that you can hopefully take your brain out of it, take your anxiety out of it enough that you can like map something. So it feels a little bit more concrete, that you have like, whether it's, 3x structure, 6x structure, story circle, whatever it happens to be, that you can be like, okay, maybe if I just map these points, if I just start there, maybe something will happen.
Yeah.
And then also, I think the idea of writing as a solitary thing doesn't make any sense to me. Not even just like, you could write something, your name is the only thing on it, but at some point, at least for me, it has to be shown, and I'd have to have people read it and experience it and tell me what's wrong with it.
I'm the same way.
I just don't think you can. I mean, I'm sure people can, but I
don't think it's as healthy.
I don't think it's healthy.
Because then it's just your perspective.
Yeah.
And it's just you.
Yeah.
And if you're humble enough to, reach out for that help, it takes a certain level of ego out of it, because you go, no, I did this on my own. Nobody touched this, and it's gold. And, I value the opinion of others too much. I send things to people that I really trust, and I know they're going to tell me if it sucks, or if it's not fleshed out, or if this character arc is flimsy and falls apart. I need that feedback.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's actually also part of the reason that I love writers' rooms too, is because you get that feedback in real time. And there also, I think the emotionality gets taken out of it in a way when you're in a writer's room. Because for me, when I get into a writer's room, it sort of feels like you're solving a puzzle. If there's a bit of it feels like there's a bit of detective work. You know what I mean?
It's all laid on the table.
And
Everybody's
you're like using the red,
yeah.
Whatever yarn or whatever. And there's like a fun in that where if you can remove yourself egoically from the process that it does feel like you're solving you're solving a mystery or dispassionately throwing things away when I'm writing is one of my favorite feelings because you're like, to be able to go like, oh yeah, that doesn't work. And then just throw it. And it doesn't matter how long you spent on it.
Yeah.
And if it was maybe your favorite thing in the script, to have the perspective and the lack of preciousness to be able to go like, oh, no. And just throwing it out.
Yeah.
Feels great.
For me, it's like, oh, good. I don't have to figure out how to rework this thing to make it make sense. It's just gone.
Yeah,
it's just gone. Get rid of it.
Right.
Yeah. Collaboration is so important in this business. I'm thinking about animation, video games, film, TV, all things that you've been a part of. There's no part of that that's done alone.
Right.
Outside of sometimes the writing.
Mm-hmm.
But you have to have a team of people to make that thing happen. Animation is so complicated. It's so expensive. It changes by the second. You think it's a drawing. I can have all the explosions or like all the things I want, but like it's not always the case. And you have to collaborate all the way down the supply chain.
Yeah.
It's important. And it's important to our creative process to be open to that collaboration. I too love being in a writer's room and going, oh God, thank God they said that. It's a way better idea than I had.
Absolutely.
Now my idea would have been really shitty if I had brought it up. You know what I mean?
Or when someone takes something and they go, oh, like the moments where you're like, and then this, and you feel that like all of these disparate elements
come together.
Someone just found the one connecting factor and then it's a thing. It's like the greatest high.
It's like everyone scoring a touchdown at the same time.
Yes, absolutely. It's so great.
Yeah. I played a video game a little while ago called Horizon Zero Dawn.
Oh, did you?
I was so overwhelmed with joy to know that my old pal Ashley Burch was. That game, the scope of that game was so massive. The production on that, the amount of time it must have taken, it's so gorgeous and so
it's beautiful, isn't it?
Detailed, gorgeous. I spend too much time just looking at plants and just walking around and going like, what is this?
You just go on top of a mountain and just like fucking
just
look at the
around.
landscape. It's crazy.
What was that process like for you? Because was that your first time doing motion capture for a game? Had you done it before for anything?
Like the smallest amount. Like I'd done motion capture strangely for an indie game.
Oh wow.
And then I'd done a very, very, very small amount of motion capture for Borderlands 2.
Yes, Tina.
Like, very small. And then also a little bit for Maya. Like, a little bit. Yeah. I literally, like, walked into a room and put my hand on my hip and did like that. That's basically it. But,
and my day rate. Do I still get lunch if this is all I did? Do I still get to eat lunch with everybody? Yeah. So doing motion capture on the Frozen Wilds by that point had been maybe my first gig doing motion capture. It feels wrong. I'm saying this. I feel like I'm forgetting something, but it's what I might be. But so it was great. It's an interesting process, right? Because you have no costume to sort of help you get into the character. People.
You have an anti-costume.
You have an anti. Yeah, you ultimately do. Yeah, it'd be easier just your normal clothes.
Yeah.
A lot of people I talk to that end up doing it tell me that that's one of the. That and the fact that there's really no set.
Yeah.
You're in a padded warehouse with thousands of cameras and sensors, and your props are, like a toilet paper roll for a gun. And, you know what I mean? Like all that weird stuff. Was it hard for you to get into the character doing that as easy? It's a lot easier in just voiceover because you're in a booth. You're able to do, as many takes as you want.
Right.
Stakes are a little bit higher when you're doing mocap.
Right,
What was that process like for you?
What was interesting about the first game, which I told you a little bit about before we started filming, but so I was writing for Adventure Time at the same time that we were recording the first game. So they originally wanted me to come out to London and do all the motion capture for like several months, basically.
Yeah.
And I couldn't because I was writing for Adventure Time. So they had basically a stunt woman doing motion capture for Aloy. So going into doing Frozen Wilds was a bit intimidating because I'm the least threatening small baby child of a person. And if you see the way that that Aloy moves in the first game, there's so much physical presence and, confidence and assuredness in the way that she moves. And so it was interesting because Aloy feels so much like my character, but then it was a strange thing of like I had to sort of practice how to move like her.
Yeah.
Which was sort of an odd thing.
Yeah.
I remember I was on a camping trip with friends and I was doing like a weird model showcase where I was like trying to walk like Aloy, and they were like, heavier in your feet. Like they were giving me like notes as I was like walking.
Because they had played it?
Yeah, I was like, well, I was showing certain people that hadn't played it. Like, here's here's some of the cutscenes. And they were like looking and going like, okay, that's pretty good. Okay, but you know.
Yeah, that's tough.
Sort of a funny thing. But the glorious part of motion capture is that you are working with other actors. So what's beautiful about that is that you can put yourself a bit on the back burner and just be like, just focus on what your scene partner is doing and make it about that interaction. And then that sort of self-consciousness goes away because it's not about you, it's about them.
Yeah.
And I actually don't find, the camera here and the dots and that actually doesn't bother me very much. It's easy to sort of, when you're in it and you're like looking in someone's eyes, it's easy for that stuff to kind of just fall away.
Yeah.
But I was worried about, like, I wanted her to feel physically present in the same way. So that was my main concern. But then going into the actual shooting, the DLC was so well cast. Nakar Zadigan, do you know her? She played Araya. Nakar is like one of the most fucking delightful people on the planet.
Really? Yeah.
She's amazing.
I've heard.
She's so great.
Yeah.
And, oh my God, I'm forgetting Richard's last name. Richard Neal, I think. I hope I'm not getting that wrong. Played Aratak, also an insanely delightful human. The entire cast, I spent the most time with them. But, but such giving, lovely people, and working with them was just amazing. And I love seeing cutscenes from the DLC because I can just pinpoint moments where if I had not worked with them in person, like small nuance, but that would not be there. And that would not be, you can see like, that came out of me developing a relationship with Nakar and understanding Araya through her performance, gave that nuance to that moment. Yeah. And so a talented actor can do either and can craft an amazing performance with just voice. But there is something so wonderful about getting to act with other people. Yeah. For that reason, because you get all these moments.
And you get to use your body.
Yeah. Yeah.
You're not limited to just a booth where you're talking. Right. Basically. You have to put everything into your voice. Right. Yeah. Let's see. Let's go back to Life is Strange. Okay. Great game. Nominated for a BAFTA. Yep. You were also nominated for Horizon, right? Yes. Ooh, 2 BAFTA nominations. 2 BAFTA nominations. That's pretty cool. Thank you. You'll get there someday. After this, you'll be on the radar. What the fuck? Makes no sense. Makes no sense. What the character of Chloe? So there's a lot there to unpack in that game. And I know you've talked about it before. Yeah. When you first were approached or whatever about that game, what were the internal conversations you were having about how you wanted that character to come across? Because there's the writing, there's the design, there's all that stuff. But at the end of the day, your voice has to make all those things come to life. We were just talking about being limited to a booth versus like on camera or whatever else. What were those tenets of that character for you that you really wanted to make sure came across in your performance?
So when I got the audition for Chloe, the description, her description, her character description, and then some concept art of her was available. And I remember thinking, there's an easy way to read this, which is sort of like angsty teen. And I really didn't want to do that. I really wanted to find an angle that had that as a color, but that she wasn't just petulant and she wasn't just angry. So my sort of sensibility going into performing Chloe was that obviously she is angry and there is a certain amount of petulance, but that you can also feel that there is a weariness and sort of the weight of having too much trauma happen to her at too young an age, and that it manifests as rebellion and anger, but that behind that is insecurity, lack of safety, and a sort of sense that like a world that once seemed safe is no longer safe. Wow, yeah. So because it's, that's what they wrote as well. You know what I mean? Like her father who dies was her best friend, basically. So you go from having a very stable life with, supportive parents and pillars. One of those pillars gets knocked out. That's bad enough. And now there's like this new aggressive, toxic person taking the place of this pillar. It's a lot.
Yeah.
And to be that young, you know?
Yeah.
That was my goal, was to try, and I hope I achieve this, to try to give greater shade to that experience than just like angry teen, you know?
Yeah.
Because that's what the script demanded. And also, you know, like, but I think, you know, I do remember seeing the sides and being like, there's an easy way to do this. And I want to try to find a shade past that.
Think your writing helped with that? Do you think your writing helps you dig deeper into characters? Because when you write, you have to flesh out all that stuff.
Yeah. And I also think it helps me. I think it can sometimes get me in trouble, but I can't not think of the entire narrative. You know, so even though I really should only be focused on Aloy or Claire or whatever, I can't help but think of how does what's happening here impact the larger narrative? How is it going to service this moment that you need later? It makes me feel like I am a broader custodian than just of this person. It's like this person is a cog in a machine that is meant to convey certain things.
Think about the story overall.
Yeah,
and the
so
experience.
Yeah, exactly. So I am aware of that because sometimes I'll speak up and I did this a lot with Aloy, of moments that I felt like needed more of an emotional tinge than others or whatever it happened to be. And I feel like that is more prominent in my head because I'm thinking of the narrative arc and where we're headed and what is needed to make this moment hit.
Yes.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So yeah, writing is definitely influenced that, like kind of wider view, broader view.
Do you feel like people are open to, you know, when I write something, I want people to want to do it. You know what I mean? I want people to go, yeah, but I also want them to find the blind sides in it. The blind sides and show me what that is. So I can, because I'm like, oh, wait, you're right.
Right.
I didn't see that. Sometimes when you present that to people in whatever medium it is, they're excited. And they're like, oh shit, I'm glad you brought this to the table.
Yeah.
Sometimes there's friction there. What's your experience been?
Both. Some people are really open to it, and some people are pretty specific.
Yeah. Like Aaron Sorkin famously, you're not allowed to change his dialogue when you perform it.
Right. It can be challenging for me sometimes when the specificity is like, because I have noticed as I've grown as an actor that even just adding a couple of words at the beginning of a line to get you into it or whatever can just completely change the performance. Even just like adding like an sometimes or like okay or just anything that gets you that helps you get into the attitude of what the line is can make it feel way more naturalistic. When people are that specific about like don't even add those, I do feel like sometimes they're shortchanging performance or can be. But I also respect that like some people are very specific and they're very meticulous and they slaved over that particular, you know, sequence of words, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And I could also see there being like, this is a bit presumptuous. You know what I mean? Like I spent hours on this.
You're
seeing it for the first time and you're going to tell me how to fucking say it?
I spent 4 months doing this.
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
So I get both ways. But I do think it needs to be a balance because if you're hiring someone to perform this character, then you need to have some level of respect of what they're bringing and that they had enough of an understanding of what you're trying to do that you cast them.
Right.
You know?
Yeah.
So I think it's a give and take. But I do, you know, when people are like, could you stay scripted? I'm like, got it, boss.
No problem. Yeah, you kind of learn to know when there's that room or not.
Yeah.
Man, it must be maybe the first couple of video games you worked on, it must have been such a cool feeling to think back about that kid with anxiety, playing video games, playing Metal Gear and going, I'm doing this now. It's rare that you have those experiences as a kid and you have these dreams and then you go like, oh, one day I may, you know, be a part of this world. And then there you are on a mocap stage making a huge video game and going like, oh my God, I kind of got there. Was there that feeling for you?
I have to say it took a while.
Yeah.
Because I think...
Why?
Because of the anxiety, I think. So much of... Which is actually something that I don't think I've ever really talked about before. And I'm actually kind of glad that I'm getting the opportunity to do it now. Because I think... I mean, it's sort of a rare I don't know why. I know why I wouldn't talk about it a lot because it's sort of circumstantial, but it's like, I think a lot of people, when they start to do their dream job, are surprised to find that there are a lot of difficulties with getting your dream job.
Yes.
And then there's also can be like a shame or a guilt associated, which is, this is my dream job. Why does it feel this way?
Mm-hmm.
You know, I've been in therapy now for like, what year is it? 2019. So 6 years. And in that process, I've grown and healed so much. And when I first started, I can't believe how much anxiety I've worked through just being in therapy for that long.
Yeah.
Because I look back on my earlier gigs and I was just so terrified of fucking it up. That was all I would focus on.
Mm-hmm.
If I had a gig, I was terrified of fucking it up, so I just had to get through the gig. And then once I got through the gig, I was like, I have to get another gig. And if I don't get another gig, and then when I got that gig, I can't fuck up this gig. Yeah. And then it was just that cycle.
Yeah.
For so long. And it wasn't...
Pretty typical in this town, too, of the way that the business side of things works and creates even more of that anxiety.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So it isn't until fairly recently that I've been able to look back and look forward. And currently, like the show that I just wrapped, I loved. There was still anxiety, but I was able to settle in, you know, both on the writing side and then in the acting side, and be like, God, what a fucking unbelievable opportunity. What wonderful people I'm surrounded by. Like, to have gratitude.
Yeah.
I've heard a lot of people talk about this kind of subject, and I've learned that it is a practice that you have to practice gratitude. It's not something that just comes.
Yeah.
So for the beginning of my career, it was very much just like, what if I fuck it up? What if I fuck it up? What if I fuck it up?
Where do you think that comes from?
Oh, I got theories.
I mean, I'm sure you've unpacked it, but I feel like you have a sheltered sort of childhood where you were indoors, you found the outside world through mediums, you know.
Right. I was about to say not to put my parents on blast, but it is their fault. But I mean, I'm half fucking around. I mean, it's like it's one of those things where I think most parents try their best, and inevitably you fuck your kids up.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like
completely.
There's no way to avoid it.
My parents have said that to me.
Right.
Yeah, they have said that to me. It's like, you were our third kid and we still just made so many mistakes. It's like, when you get older, you go, I understand, it's fine.
Yeah.
But you have to deal with that stuff
Absolutely.
sometimes.
And also, I mean, this is wild, but like there's research being done now that you can literally genetically inherit trauma. And my mom had a fucking crazy childhood.
Really?
Nuts.
Yeah.
She grew up in Thailand, poor. Like,
yeah.
So just start to imagine shit. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
like, it's crazy.
No joke, yeah.
No joke. So who knows how much of that's in there? My dad's a whole story we won't get into, but you know what I mean? Like,
yeah.
So there's some amount of inheriting. And then when you have people that have experienced that much trauma, then like how does parenting happen? And the difficulties that come with trying to be a parent when you have that much trauma.
Yeah.
And then you create little humans.
How do you deal with it?
Therapy.
What's the truth? Yeah, exactly. But yeah, that's a huge part of it. And it's something that is getting de-stigmatized.
Yeah.
What's the truth you tell yourself in those moments to remind you that you're going to be okay?
I mean, and to be totally honest, there are moments where I can't talk myself down from the ledge, and it's just time.
You just have to have time.
There's just there are certain days where it's like, no matter fucking what I do or what happens, it's all falling apart. No one can talk me out of that. And no one can talk you out of anything anyway. But like, I go to therapy once a week, and I just recently started doing TM.
Yeah.
Understandably, I think there's a lot of like, because...
skepticism.
Yeah, there's skepticism because it costs money, which I get because there's lots of meditation that doesn't.
Yeah. But
it is wild. Like, it's a wild physical experience, which I've never had with meditation before. But even if... And the kind of cool, you get a pamphlet where they're like, is like, there's like a Q&A in the pamphlet. And one of them was like, I think this is bullshit, basically. Yeah. And they're like, that's fine. You don't have to believe in it for it to work. And I think it's pretty true because there's just a strange thing where like the first TM session, I was pretty skeptical going in and I was like, I don't know. And then he gave me my mantra or whatever. And it was just like worked immediately. Yeah. It was really wild.
Wow.
But even if you're like, I don't know about this, at minimum, you are 2 times a day sitting down and you're breathing.
Just breathing.
You know what I mean? And it's not even like the TM is different from other meditations in which you don't even focus on your breath. You do nothing. They basically say like, it's about doing nothing, which is also sort of interesting to just have like the pressure of needing to be or do anything is like antithetical to the point.
Yeah.
And I have found before that I was doing a lot of mindfulness meditation, which is more difficult because it is about returning to your breath consistently.
Mm-hmm.
I was doing that for several years, and I would notice the days that I didn't meditate that I was much more...
Things were off.
Yeah. I was much more susceptible and much more of a raw nerve, and my anxiety was much more heightened. So I go to therapy, and I do meditation now twice a day.
Yeah.
And it's helped so much. And I think the hard thing with therapy, A, for a lot of people, is the cost.
Mm-hmm.
B, there are shitty therapists out there.
Tons.
Yeah,
I've burned through all of them.
Oh my God.
They're all out of practice now. They've all surrendered they're like, that's it. I don't ever want to talk to someone like that again.
You did a service. You did a public service.
I did. I got them. They all work at, Ralph's somewhere now. I got them. Yeah.
But it is hard. I mean, I'm not going to sit here and be like, just go to therapy. It's a difficult, getting to the place where like I had a crazy thing happen to me that it was like, I literally was like, I have no choice. I must go to therapy. I must go.
I was talking to a friend of mine about that the other day because he's going through some stuff and he lacks the tools to be able to get out of it himself.
Mm-hmm.
That isn't weakness.
No.
That's not weakness. I think strength is being able to say,
yes,
I lack the tools to be able to get out of this myself.
If it was weak, everyone would be doing it. If it was the easy way out, if it was the path of least resistance, everyone would be doing it. It should be an indicator that the fact that it's very hard for people to go to therapy, it's very hard for people to express their feelings, it's very hard for people to reach out for help, that it takes a tremendous amount of strength to do those things.
Yeah. When someone reaches out for help or for advice, my initial thought isn't to say, you couldn't handle this on your own. You know what I mean? It's like, if you got to push your car, you're going to ask someone to help you because you need help getting that car from point A to point B. Right. Our experience is the same way. We need help getting through life. It is full of ups and downs and unpredictabilities and tragedies and triumphs, and being able to figure out a way to navigate that with each other.
Mm-hmm.
That's why we're here.
Absolutely. We need people.
Yeah.
And we need that connection.
Yeah.
And the nice thing about therapy, especially if you have a good therapist, at least with my experience with therapy, it is an opportunity to build trust with someone in a setting where you basically call the shots. So I remember the first time that my therapist was like, he kind of had because he's very intuitive. He asked me a question, I sort of faltered, and he just sort of intuited that I didn't trust him. And he was like, you don't have to trust me. I have to earn your trust. And that to me was big because because there's, especially I think, it's not gender specific, but I think also there is a thing with women, especially that when you're sort of crafted to be people pleasy, that even if there's not trust, or even if they're I will fuck with my own sense of boundary so that you feel okay. You know what I mean? I
relate to this, and I know a lot of people are going to also. The other thing that's interesting is you study your own behavior throughout your life. Mm-hmm. You understand what you're prone to do. Mm-hmm. But you don't always understand why you are. Mm-hmm. And I think that's one of the most important parts about self-reflection.
Mm-hmm. The why was very important to me too.
Yeah.
And therapy helped me with a lot with that.
You don't have to dwell on it. You don't have to go.
But it lets you off the hook a bit, right?
But it does let you off the hook. You're not 100% responsible for your own flaws.
Right, because I feel like there's a lot of part and parcel with a lot of anxiety is a sort of I don't know, there's a shame or there can be self-hatred, and there's a sort of element of when you start to realize where these things come from, it eases that, I think. Because you're like, oh, it's not just because I'm a trash fire. It's because this aspect of my childhood and this thing from my mom and this thing from my dad and this thing from my environment and all of these things put together created this person that I am.
A complicated person.
A complicated person.
Which we all are.
Absolutely. Yeah. And I think the thing that is interesting, and the more that I've sort of realized going through this process, is that the anxious part of me is a 3-year-old that still needs shit. And is still I still need this.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Didn't get certain things when she was that age. So she just stayed. And she's still waiting,
Yeah.
for me to get the things that will make her feel okay. And so that has helped me so much because, again, you can beat yourself up for like, just fucking get over it, or why are you having these thoughts or whatever. When I imagine it as a 3-year-old, you wouldn't behave that way with a 3-year-old.
No,
you'd be like, oh my God, what's going on, babe? Like, let's talk, like, the more that I interact with people, the more that I learn about myself. I think everyone has that, and everyone needs parenting still, but we can't have it because there's a certain length of time and there's certain people that you get and they do their best. And inevitably, they're going to fuck up.
Yeah.
And so you're left with this sort of like, you have this leftover that then you have to be your own parent for.
Right.
And I do feel that that's where so much pain and also shitty things that people do come from is these unmet needs.
Yeah.
And the way that these unmet needs manifest as anxiety, depression, anger, whatever, and then how those sort of, metastasize into shitty behavior.
My big thing is like, why can't I snap out of this? That's how I beat myself up.
Yeah.
Because I'll get into a cycle and I'm like, why can't I snap out of this? And then I end up just staying in it because I can't find the way out. It's like a carousel that's moving so fast. And you're like, I have to jump off. Realistically, this thing's going like what, 7 miles an hour? If I was in a car going, but there's something scary about it because everything's spinny. And that's sort of the way those cycles sometimes feel. You need somebody outside yourself to come in and go, it's cool. Yes. You don't have to snap out of it.
Yes.
You just make your way through it. And here's the tools to sort of do that.
Yeah.
And then when you get that, it's freeing.
And I think part of the thing, this idea of like its weakness is sort of a lie to keep you in it. Because I think the sort of perverse weird thing about it is that it feels safer. Because you don't know anything outside of it. Like when I started sort of healing my anxiety more and more, I got afraid of it going away. Because I was
it's a
like,
comfort blanket. It's been there for so long.
It's a toxic, stinking, dirty comfort blanket. You know what I mean? Yeah. And even just the language I just used to describe it was mean. You know what I mean? I just caught myself. I was like, that's so rude. That's my baby girl's baby blankie. You know what I mean? Like,
yeah.
But there's a safety in it. There's like, I don't know what life is like outside of this. What if when I let go of this, it all falls apart? This is the thing that's keeping it all together. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
There is that sort of linkage that happens.
I know people that will hold on to those things and almost as if they would feel naked without it.
Absolutely.
I would rather live with the torment of this thing than find out what happens when it's gone because I'm afraid of opening that door.
And when it's gone, and it's not 100% gone for me, this is the one thing, I feel like I'm talking so much about things that my therapist has told me. But he's a great therapist.
This is great.
I want everyone to know what he has to say.
Yeah, we'll flash his business card.
It's just a very long commercial for my therapist. But I remember him once saying, like, you get to keep all the good things.
Yes.
But then this deep lack of ease gets lifted, but you get to keep all the good things. I had a mentor once describe it to me like you're an X-Men. You're like, it's a mutant power.
Yeah.
Because when you have this level of intense, whatever, because you're so hypervigilant and you're way too aware of what other people think, or you're way too aware of your environment or whatever, you can become very good with people. When I first started telling people that I had anxiety, I got a lot of surprise because I am generally, I think, pretty affable.
Yeah, big time.
And so I think people found it surprising that I had anxiety because I seemed socially, relatively well-equipped. And so, but I think it's because of my anxiety, that because I can feel like, oh, you had a slight switch in your posture, your vibe, your energy, or whatever you want to call it. Something I said triggered something in you. Okay, I'm going to pivot and what's something more comfortable. Let's find something more comfortable.
Like you said, you're more worried about making someone else comfortable than you are your own like healing and your own process and stuff.
So then I become good at being with people, good at giving advice, good at making space. And those are all things I really like about myself.
Yeah.
And the shadow side of it is all the anxiety that comes with it. But then as you start to lift the anxiety, you just get the nice stuff. You just get I know how to make space with someone without absorbing it. Without,
you're
know
not,
what I mean?
You're also not projecting onto them how they are reacting to you.
Right.
Yeah, which I do all the time.
Absolutely.
Because I'll see someone here and say something, and then I'm like, oh no, their face. I have to spend the next 2 hours apologizing and fixing this and making them feel better and buy them lunch.
Yeah,
and
absolutely. Right.
Give them a vacation, whatever it is. Yeah, it's interesting.
Do you need money? What do you
need? Yeah. Let me cut the check. Let me cut the check to make up
cost for you to love me?
Whatever is going to get that look off your face right now after what I just said. You and I have a very interesting connection. in a weird way, because I, number one, spent several years of my 20s as an opiate addict. And I, a few years ago, met the wonderful Patrick Fugit, who's now one of my closest friends. And he brought you up one time, and I said, Ashley Burch, that's crazy. Because I said, I don't know her, but I know that she's around. I obviously knew who you were. And then when you and I finally met, I sort of came to better understand that small world connection, which was your ex-boyfriend David, who passed away a few years ago from a opiate overdose, accidental opiate overdose. I'm getting kind of emotional because I've lost several friends that way. I had a lot of close calls. My journey out of that was due to a extremely close call.
Really?
Yeah, I had several of them, because you end up in a place where you can't trust your own mind or your own body. Right. And you go, I know I handled this much last time. Right. I can probably just bump that up again. Right. I can probably, but your body changes and it reacts in different ways and different days, and how much you ate and how much you've slept and what else is going on in your body and what you've mixed it with and all these other things. Right. And I came close several times, and it scared me. It scared me, and when my friends started to go, when 3, 4, 5 stints in rehab for some of my friends was not working, I was getting really scared.
When did you start? Can I ask, how old were you when you started using?
Early 20s.
That's right. Okay.
Up until almost my late 20s.
Okay.
Yeah, when I moved to LA about 10 years ago was when I stopped. I took this as a trip to reset. This is an epidemic across the country right now. Yeah. I'm angry. I'm angry about it. I've written about it. I'm angry. I'm angry at how accessible it was for me to get. I'm angry about how accessible oxy and opiates in general are for young people. Yeah. It couldn't have hit closer to home for you than it did with David. Yeah. To whatever extent you're comfortable, talk to me about that.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. So his name was David Fetzer, and he and I met on the set of an indie movie made by our you've met Kenny, right?
I know Kenny.
Beautiful Kenny Riches.
Great filmmaker.
And a dear friend of Patrick's. And David and Patrick were like childhood best friends. Yes. So David and I played the male-female lead. And, I think it's changing, but the other difficult thing about addiction is that people have a very specific picture of what it looks like. And it's not favorable. It's like a homeless person talking to themselves, or you know what I mean? Yeah. And David was this gregarious, sweet, funny, goofy, gentle, dear person. So David and I started dating, and I remember dating him being like the first time that I ever felt what safe feels like. Wow. He was like, I didn't know it at the time, but one of our mutual friends pointed it out to me. So they were born and raised in Utah, and David and I were long distance for a portion of our time together. And I remember visiting him once in Utah, and we went to a coffee shop, and I must have kissed him on the cheek or something. It was clear that we were together. Yeah. And one of our mutual friends was like, because he was like the guy everyone in Utah wanted to date.
So I was told.
There was just a sea of female eyes that came with such vitriol looking at me.
Who is this foreign woman coming in here and kissing our town?
This young Mexican boy dating.
Yeah.
So he was really, everyone in Salt Lake knew him and adored him. And he
was a musician.
He was a musician. He was an actor. He and Patrick had a band together named Mushman. Yep. He was just everyone says this about people that die, right? But he was like such a singular human being. He was so universally beloved. And I discovered, I guess, like maybe a year and change into us dating, because I had never. It's funny because my dad is. My dad was an alcoholic. Is an alcoholic, but he stopped drinking before I was born.
Oh, okay. Wow. Yeah.
So I remember being talked a lot about, like he would talk about it a lot in terms of like, you have my blood in you, so when you start drinking, just be careful, monitor thing. Like that kind of conversation came up a lot. So I knew about it in as much as that, you know, but like he wasn't actively drinking ever in my life. So I had never seen what an active addict looks like. So in retro, there's all the, you know, whatever. There's all this like guilt and shame about like it was so obvious. Well, you know, but
you're gonna go through that.
You're gonna go through that. But it wasn't until I like caught him basically and realized like David has a problem because he was
drinking or with other stuff.
With opiates.
Yeah, with opiates. Yeah.
Because David had. I mean, I'll never know for sure. Because some people just get addicted, and some people get addicted because of. As a coping mechanism, some people get addicted because they get addicted. Like there's just so many
physical, there's emotional,
there's emotional, and I don't know what the exact cocktail of that was for David. But on the physical side, he had 2 herniated discs in his spine, so he could go to any doctor and show them an X-ray, and they'd be like, "Oh my God,
you must be in so much pain.
Here's a bunch of opiates."
Yeah.
So he was doctor shopping, and I have a lot of anger about it too because he went to. I don't know how many fucking doctors before someone checked to see how many times he had been prescribed Percocet.
See if he had another prescription.
He'd gone to at least 5 fucking doctors before someone checked to see if he'd been prescribed before. And when that doctor finally checked, he sat him down and he was like, "You have a problem. And he gave him a bunch of resources, basically. Like, here's a clinic that does, a pain management without use of addictive substances. Here's this rehab. And so I remember him coming home from that experience and actually having a lot of gratitude for that doctor and being like, he was really great. And he just sat me down and he'd claimed that he had taken a different drug than he'd actually taken. Because I remember before he went to this doctor, I didn't know exactly what was going on, but I knew something was wrong, and I had asked him to stop taking Percocet. So he claimed that he hadn't taken it when he came back from this doctor. He claimed he had been given a different drug, but he had the same symptoms. And I remember Googling his symptoms, and for the drug that he claimed that I can't even remember what it was, but for whatever drug he claimed he was taking. They were severe, like you should take someone to a hospital. So I got really scared, and I actually found the number for the doctor he had just seen and called and was like, my boyfriend David just came and saw you. He's having these really severe symptoms. I'm wondering if I should take him somewhere. And the doctor just kept saying, I think you and he should come in and see me.
Okay.
And he kept saying that. He wouldn't tell me anything else. And I remember getting angry.
Yeah.
And I remember being like, this guy's insinuating that David's an addict. He's not an addict. Because I was also laboring under the delusion that like addicts are, fucking like people in The Wire. You know what I mean?
It's a lot more obvious. I mean, I was selling cell phones at the time, and I would work a full shift on Oxy, and 99% of the people in my life had no idea until I quit that I was even doing it, because you can hide certain things very well, and it's not like being shit-faced drunk.
Right. It behooves you to hide it.
It behooves you to hide it because then you get to keep doing it.
Because then you get to keep doing it. So that was when basically David had he had taken too much. He'd kind of I don't think he had fully passed out, but he got really woozy, went to sleep. I went to wake him up and I was flustered. I was like, this fucking guy is saying whatever. And his reaction was sort of okay, let's go. It was a reaction I was surprised by.
That you had called the doctor?
No, that he had said come, because he was okay, yeah, we have to go see him. Yeah. There was and this is also the confusing thing I think that people don't understand about addiction is that the person might say, I want to quit, I'm going to quit. And they, and 100% want to and believe it and believe that they can, and then use the next day. And it's not like an active deception all the time. It's David admitted to me that he had lied to me while we were getting into the car too. He was it wasn't this other drug. It was Percocet. I lied. And it was in that moment that I was oh, okay, you're an addict. And
he didn't lie because he doesn't care about you.
Right.
He lied because he had to.
Yeah. To keep being able to use this substance that everything, I mean, his fucking body had changed to feel like it needed it. So
it happens a lot with long-term pain management. People with chronic pain and they end up, it becomes part of your body chemistry.
Absolutely. It changes your brain. And so that's the thing that David told me. We went through this whole, you know, I talked to his family. Everyone was made aware. And he really, I mean, the amount of shame I think he experienced admitting to people that he had this problem. And I believe that he really did want to stop. He really did want to stop. And he couldn't stop. Because you don't get to choose. It's and this is why I think 12-step programs are often, you know, people have a lot of hangups about it, but you know, I think the second step is like turn their will over to a higher power, basically,
or however that manifests itself. Yeah.
But even if you're an atheist, it's like the idea of like by the grace of God, because it's not like you decide. You can't will yourself into deciding to stop. It's like, I know a lot of sober people now, and they all have completely very, very different stories. And they all have the same experience. It's just like, you know, whether they believe in God or not, it's like, thank God that I was able to. Because it's not sheer force of will. It's not strength of character. It's not any of that bullshit. It is, I don't know what it is. Some people just hit a bottom and are able to come back up. And some people never find the bottom deep enough. And some people die. Some people just die.
Yeah.
So it's really hard. And
he didn't lose a battle.
No.
It's like he lost a battle and he died a loser. It's like when people say that he lost his battle with addiction, he lost his whatever. It's like, first of all, it's not a battle.
Right.
It's a
disease.
It's a disease. It's a dance. It's a reaching out. It is I need something else, and this is my experience. I'm not trying to project this onto David or his journey, but for me, it was like, I lack what I need to feel whole in this world and to move forward. This thing is not going to make me feel whole or move forward, but it's going to help me feel better until I figure that out.
Yeah.
But you never think, I may not come out of this thing.
Right.
The clock may run out on me before I get a chance to have that happen.
Yeah. Yeah. I don't think, you know, it's not like, it's not this like insidious design, you know, no, I don't think any addict is actively trying to cause anything to happen except for some sort of pain, whether it's fucking physical, emotional, or both, to be alleviated, you know?
Yeah.
That's all it is. And it gets out of hand.
Yeah.
And I think it's interesting because my bubble is different now. And I have so many people that just get what sobriety is and understand it. But you know, I think a lot of people still don't. And I also have a lot of difficulty talking about it because, well, one, I think people don't, which I can't really blame anyone for, but people don't really know how to field grief because it is the ultimate fucked up thing.
It is. Yeah,
like it is to try to make space for grief, I think is a very difficult thing for people to know how to do. So I don't really, you know, blame anyone for that, but it does make it difficult to talk about because the last thing you want when you're going through grief is to feel like you kind of have to babysit someone else through your experience of grief.
Wow, yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah, I do.
Which I had to, there were, you know, very specific cases I remember of people being angry at David, and it didn't help at all. Like, it didn't help.
When he was still here?
No, after he died.
After he died.
Like, I'm so mad that he did this to you. I'm so mad. And it's like, he didn't, though. It's not like David was like, I'll show Ashley. You know what I mean? Like,
I'll show this person I love.
Yeah, like
what's up?
There was no, I don't think there was any, you know what I mean? Like, it's just, so people have so many thoughts and feelings about addiction and about death. And especially when those two things are intertwined, someone having the capacity to put all that shit on the back burner and be able to make space for you. I mean, it's a lot to ask, I guess, so depending on the person's experience. So, there's that. And then the other thing is that while I was with him, I think there was definitely, with some people, a certain intolerance of like, why are you choosing to stay with this guy? Like, why would you be with him? Just leave. And I think there is a certain lack of understanding also on that end of things. Because it's not like I was casually dating this guy and, he was fun, but he has this thing. And even that, I'm not going to fucking judge someone in that situation either.
Yeah.
But my circumstance with David was this is someone that I was deeply in love with and like, I genuinely thought I was going to spend the rest of my life with. I mean,
it was a long-term thing.
Yeah, I was young.
Yeah.
But even still in the relationships I've been in since, I still know that that relationship was a singular experience. It wasn't just like a puppy love thing. Like David was a very, very special person.
Yeah.
And if we had been able to figure that out, that is the relationship that I wanted. I fully expected to just be with him. He was my person, So I think people not being in it, it's really hard for them to understand that component.
There's a number of different factors to look at. If someone is confronted with the reality of the seriousness of their addiction by a loved one, and they openly refuse to either accept it or to do anything about it, that's an out for you.
Yeah.
Potentially,
right.
Depending on who you are. It's not for everybody. Some people will go, I'm still going to stay in this because I believe this person can change and will. They're just blinded right now by this thing.
Right.
The other part of it is if the manifestation of that addiction creates a toxicity between you and the person that you're with, or a parent-child relationship, or brother-sister, whatever it is, that's another thing.
Right.
But to walk away from someone because they're addicted to something is not always the right thing to do for that person or for yourself. It's a case-by-case basis, and you have to look at how that thing is playing out and how willing that person is to admit it and to figure out how to get help. And the hardest part is admitting it.
Yeah.
The hardest part isn't getting the help, because once it's out there.
It's out there.
It's out there. It's easier to get help. It's going, I have a fucking problem.
Yeah.
Admitting it to yourself first, and then being able to take that outside.
Yeah.
For me, it was, I only do this once a day. I still work. I don't call in sick to work. 90% of my friends have no idea this is happening. I'm fine.
Right.
I'm fine.
Right.
And then realizing like, I'm not fine.
Right.
And it is a cycle of shame. The next day waking up going, I can't do this again.
Yeah.
I can't do this again. And you say that to yourself up until the point where you're like, it's time to take my pills. I had no herniated discs.
Right.
I had no chronic pain. I was not in a car accident. I had none of the things that you should be prescribed that thing for. I bought it from someone because I went through a bad relationship that I didn't want to have to deal with. And that period was my time of going, I'll deal with this later. I want to live in this sort of carefree zone, which I thought it was.
Right.
Managing
it is
internal
until it isn't,
pain.
Right? Like it is.
It is until it isn't.
And that's the thing, like I said, I have a lot of sober people in my life right now, and they're like, something that I hear a lot is like, alcohol is the perfect cure for alcoholism. You know what I mean? Like, that's something that's, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's this thing that like, it is the thing that helps you the most until it doesn't work anymore. And that's the thing of like, and some people are lucky that they get to get out of it.
Yeah.
And I think it's difficult for people that don't have any addicts in their life. It's difficult for people that do have addicts in their life. There's nothing you can do to change that situation. It's the most difficult thing, and it applies outside of addiction as well. There's nothing you can do to change another person.
Yeah.
There's nothing you can do. And it comes from them, and it's also, there's no perfect permutation of things. That's why people can go in and out of rehab, because it's not like one rehab visit and you're done.
Right.
Yeah. There's no magic cure. There's no perfect permutation. It's just you try things and you fucking hope and you pray to God if you believe in God, and or you keep showing up to meetings if that's what you do, or you know what I mean? Like,
it's a different process for every person.
Yeah.
Because how we got into it is different and how we come out of it is different.
Yeah.
In the aftermath of his passing, did you struggle? I'm asking this because I struggled with this with friends of mine that passed.
Yeah.
Did you struggle with blaming yourself in any way? Did you struggle with going, is there more I could have done? Is there more I could have said? Should I have pushed harder? Should I have tried to get more truth? Should I have talked to more doctors? I've been through all of that. I'm just wondering if that was your experience too.
100%. I mean, it's interesting because I think that is, so David died in very end of 2012. And I feel like I'm only just starting to uncover certain things about it. And I think I put a lot of the self-hatred stuff at the bottom of the pile because it's really hard to look at.
Yeah.
But I feel like a fucking idiot. Like I would see him, he'd hit his head and his nose would start bleeding, or, we would be at a social gathering and he'd have to go in the bathroom and throw up, or like just certain things that you look back and you're like, the fuck is wrong with me? Like from Ward 1, I should have been like, there's something weird going on here. And then even after we found out, I still didn't understand addiction. So the thing that we tried to focus on was like, well, if we fix his back,
he won't need the pills.
He won't need the pills, so he'll stop using them. That's not true either.
Right. Yeah.
Like, again, maybe there's various permutations of things that came together to make him start taking these pills, and physical pain being one of them. But once you become addicted, it doesn't fucking matter if you fix the physical pain.
No.
Like,
you have to deal with the other thing.
You have to deal with the other thing now. And there was this, we were living in Seattle at the time, and he would leave. And so he would leave to like go do a show or leave to whatever. And then I discovered after he died that whenever he left, he would use again. And that entire time I thought that like, because he wouldn't do it around me. And he would even exhibit some of the same symptoms. Like he'd come home and like be laid up in bed, having withdrawals.
Yeah.
And it was funny because it was like, I mean, it's not funny. It was weird because it was like my body knew, but my brain didn't. Like,
why do you think that is?
Because I think my intuition is here, basically.
Okay, yeah.
So I would, and my brain wasn't ready to deal with the reality of the situation. So, he would come back from a trip, be laid up in bed, and I would have a physical reaction of panic and sorrow and anger and all of these things. And my brain would be like, just play video games for 4 hours.
Right. Yeah.
And to not deal with the fact that like my body immediately knew. The second I saw him, the physical reaction was, this is exactly what happened before. But to accept that he was using was to accept that he lied.
Oh wow, yeah.
Do you know what I mean?
Yes.
Because he looked so many times he like looked at me and was like, I can stop. I want to stop. I will stop.
I'm clean.
I'm clean.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so
to allow that one thought in meant you have to allow these others.
All the other ones.
And then it went, I'm going to shut them all out.
Yeah. Absolutely.
Yeah.
Because there were moments of like, where, non-addict David, because it's like two different people, you know what I mean? So like non-addict David would be in tears and be like, I would never do this to you again. And I think in those moments, it wasn't a show. He believed that. He believed he would never do it again. He believed that he would never cause me that pain again. And he didn't want to. But these are two different people.
Yeah. So
to remember him in that state, so convinced he would never hurt me again, I didn't want to believe that was a lie. And in that moment, and I didn't realize until later, I didn't understand until later, that it wasn't a lie to him in that moment. It became a lie later.
It's not that they were going, fuck you, Ashley.
Right.
I'm going to go do this thing because I don't give a shit about you.
Right.
It's, I can't.
Yeah.
I can't just stop it.
Right.
It's not the way it works.
Right.
It's scientifically not the way it works.
Right.
It's not a betrayal to you.
Right. It's not a conscious choice. It's torture. It's torture. The thing, like you mentioned earlier, you're so angry, about the accessibility. David's doctor, who he'd been seeing since he was a kid, so probably this person also had a complex about the idea of David being an addict, potentially, if I'm being generous.
Right.
he was the person that he never even spoke the word addiction. And David was taking 10 Percocets a day, which is an insane amount of this drug. It's taking one Percocet for me would probably lay me out flat.
Yeah.
You know, like it's so much. And
I would take 25 Vicodin at a time because that's what I had to take to get high. And the doctor would tell me like that amount of acetaminophen will kill you. And I'm like, sure. But I mean, like, unless you want to give me something stronger, I'm going to take 25 of these.
Right.
And people can't believe it. If you took 25 of those right now, you'd die. But my tolerance was so high.
Right.
You could just take and take and take and take and take. And you have to get
to that place again.
That place again.
But it was wild to me because I, like I said, after I found out that like David had a problem, I was like, I can't do this on my own. So I like contacted his family and his friends, and he went back to Utah. He saw their family doctor, and it was like he didn't even blink at it. He basically said,
the doctor,
he was like, he said something like the amount he's taking isn't the problem. He just needs a higher dosage. He
takes less. He needs a higher prescription, so he takes less.
Right. But he didn't even float the idea of addiction. That word was not uttered at any point. He prescribed him the pills that killed him. This doctor did.
The stronger Percocet.
He gave him, because David, this is another thing, health insurance, but we had health insurance in Seattle because Seattle had a state-specific program that David qualified for because he had a pre-existing condition. And was not, he couldn't get healthcare a lot of other places before the Affordable Care Act got passed, which was unfortunately after he died. So he qualified for healthcare in Seattle because they permitted people with pre-existing conditions to get healthcare. When we moved back to Los Angeles, he no longer qualified. So he went to his doctor and basically said, I don't have healthcare anymore. I don't know when I'm going to be able to get it again. I have this pain. Can you just prescribe me enough to float me for like a few months? And so this guy gave him like 9D pills.
Wow. At once. Wow.
There's blame and there's not blame to be thrown around, but even if he had been like, no, David, I'm not going to give you those pills, David could have gotten them from somewhere else probably, but like, it's the lack of conversation. The fact that of all of the doctors David saw, which was, I can't imagine how many he had seen, because I'm sure he saw so many without me knowing.
Yeah.
To my knowledge, only one doctor brought up the idea of addiction. And the countless doctors he must have seen to get Percocet.
It's a fucking problem.
And again, like I said before, there's no magic solution to addiction. But I do think awareness of the problem being discussed, awareness of resources, those things can give people a better chance.
Health professionals paying attention.
Yes.
And doing their research, like you said.
Yeah.
Calling around and going, does this guy have 5 scripts already from 5 different doctors?
Yeah.
Yeah. All those things can factor in.
I think I guess I would call myself an agnostic. I don't have a firm belief either way. But it is interesting to see how much things just don't feel like they're up to you. Do you know what I mean? Like,
there is a certain amount of chaos in the universe that,
and even internally, like I'm sure there's like a web of circumstances, and that's why I think like people knowing about 12-step programs, knowing about rehabs, knowing about how addiction works, a doctor saying you might have a problem with addiction, maybe none of that individually solves it, but maybe that cornucopia of things chips away at the block enough that you get to a point where you hit a bottom and all of that shit floods in and you're like, fuck, I need to get help. You know what I mean? So there could just be a labyrinth of things that that you're not aware of that suddenly click into place with the right, impetus. Yeah. But there's so many revelations in my own life that I feel like they just sort of happen. I didn't will them into existence. I didn't, through just sheer force of strength, convince myself of X, Y, or Z thing. It's just a process. And again, some people, they don't get the time.
Yeah.
And that is the greatest tragedy of it, is that some people get the time and some people don't. And there's no rhyme or reason to it often. You know what I mean? Like, you can be the richest person in the world, all the resources at your disposal, and still die. You could be the poorest person on the planet with no resources, and you can make it out.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. It does not pick favorites.
No.
It does not pick favorites, and that clock is going to keep going no matter what.
Yeah.
That the hands on that clock are going to keep turning, and yeah. Thank you for talking about this. I know it's a subject that we both care a lot about.
I struggled with it a lot. Because there is the stigma of like, is David just going to be seen as an addict now? And I'm sure some people are like, oh yeah, Ashley's dead addict boyfriend. Do you know what I mean? Like that is I've gotten like emails of probably like 13-year-olds don't know what the fuck they're saying crazy shit about David, not knowing what they're talking about.
Yeah.
But I remember David has a number of really close friends that live in Michigan, and I was talking to one of them on the phone, and I remember his nickname's Shiny, and I remember talking to Shiny, and he was like, and I had done a podcast where I had talked about like, I'd gone through everything, and I'd actually gotten some anger from loved ones of David for the amount that I had shared. For sharing so much, yeah. And I get that. And I had such a struggle with it because I at the time I was like, I was worried. I was like, should I talk about this going into it? And then I thought, well, I'm afraid David would be ashamed if he was still alive. And then again, this like voice came from down here. It almost felt like that was like, but that's exactly why you have to talk about it because he didn't deserve to feel ashamed about it. You know, the shame is the problem. The shame creates silence, and silence makes people die. And so I remember Shiny saying something of like, "Don't you think that even if it had helped one person, that David would have wanted you to talk about it?" And I think that's true. From everything I know about him, yes. Yeah. 100%. And I think it's the same thing, even talking about like anxiety or depression or whatever. If it helps one person, you know. And for my part, you know, there are programs that are not meant to be spoken about to help people that are not addicts themselves, but love addicts. That are in, and are very easy to find if you Google them. So there are resources as well. If you're in the life, if you're walking through life with somebody that's in that place, you can very much find community and resources that are free. That are free. I can't let you get out of here. Yes. There's so many projects I want to talk to you about that I can't. It sucks. This is the worst part of my job. Is I'm like, ooh, you can't. Yeah. But it was announced, and you recently, I've been trying to get you on the show forever, but I couldn't because you were filming something amazing for Apple's new streaming service. Yes. And it was announced that you are acting and writing on this project, and you just finished doing it. Yeah. What can you fucking tell me about it? I don't know, man. I don't know what I can tell you. It still doesn't have a name. That's okay. It doesn't have a name. We know that the people involved. We know that Charlie Day. We know that, exactly. Yeah, Rob McElhenney, Charlie Day. It's a production of theirs. It's being made with Ubisoft. It's about a game development company. There are so many fucking amazing people in it, and I love all of them. Yes. That might be all I can say, but the cast has been announced. You had an exceptionally awesome time working on that show. Such a good time. We were talking about it before. That's not always the case. Not always the case. Which people, I mean, when you go on press tour, I'm sure everyone has to be like, it's so much fun. Oh, we had all these on-set antics, and everyone hates each other. Right, and you hear like 10 years later that it was just a nightmare. Yeah. This was truly, honestly, genuinely a complete dream. Like our hair and makeup team, who were awesome, also were constantly saying like, you guys are so lucky. Yeah. Because like 3 of the other female leads we're all around the same age, and we fucking hang out. Yeah. Like we just like being around each other. Yeah. I got them all, actually, this is the perfect place to talk about this, for a wrap gift. I got them all D&D dice. Oh, you did? Because none of them had played, and I was like, I want us to keep hanging out, so maybe I'll run a campaign. Yes! Do it. I'm so bad at math, though. I don't care. Thing. Do it. Do it. I need to try to get, Matt doesn't have any time. He's got so much time. He'll totally 3 minutes run a game of time. Not run a game, but I wanted to ask him for tips and tricks. Oh, he's got time for that. I really want a dumbed down version though, where I don't have to do so much math. This is my. You can totally do that. You can. That's the thing about D&D is you can sort of customize it to fit. You just don't have to. I'm reading the handbook and they're like, use this equation to figure this out, and I'm just like sitting there like.
D&D is as much an excuse. It's as much a game that you want to play and you want to experience and whatever else, but it's also an excuse to just keep in touch and just to have a regular thing where you get to hang with people and you get to go on an adventure together that doesn't cost a ton of money.
Right.
And you can just continue and enrich those relationships through
Absolutely.
it. I think you should do it.
I've been reading. I need to like ask you guys for some help with like how I can, because they've never played. Mm-hmm. And I'm barely a good player, and I've never DM'd.
Oh, come on. It's coming from the person who killed Molly. What are you talking about?
I was like, time to you bring that up. You actually did very well. That wasn't like the first thing out of your mouth.
I brought it up before the show.
Did. You brought it up
We were
before.
walking in here, and we passed the Critical Role table, and I said, oh, look, that's where you were sitting when you killed Molly. I'm never going to let you fucking live it down.
I can't believe that was my first fucking day. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
the worst
you had
day
the arc
of work.
Yeah,
first day of work.
Then you came to Gen Con. And,
it was beautiful. I still kind of wish that I had killed him. I think Matt
too.
kind of wanted me to kill him. But it was also kind of perfect that, not Molly. You know. Can we say spoilers for shit?
People know.
Right?
Spoilers, Campaign 2.
Yeah.
Lorenzo.
It did feel like Matt was trying to set it up so that I would finish him off. But I think it's also proper that someone in the party...
If that's the truth, you have to tell yourself after the fact to be okay with it. Then it's fine. I mean, it's written in canon forever, but I mean, like, whatever you need to say to get through the day.
You know who will be a safe caretaker of the story while Laura and Travis are gone? We can trust her. Ashley Burch, our friend Ashley.
Was it, besides Hey Ashnell, so we didn't get a ton of time to go into that stuff, but you've talked about so much before.
Yeah, I'm tired of talking about Hey Ashnell.
Is
Not
this
really,
the first thing that you acted in and written
for
at the same time?
That is live action, I believe.
Live action, yeah, of course, yeah.
I believe so. I mean, for the Rocket Jump Hulu show, we wrote the shorts and did.
Oh yeah.
But that also didn't feel. It kind of felt like Hey Ash, and I mean, a very high budget Hey Ash, and I also directed the short, which is a completely different experience. But there was something about. Because there's also like Rocket Jump felt like a natural progression where they're like, yes, these are YouTube people that are kind of crossing the threshold and we are YouTube people and whatever. But going into the situation where it's like, they made Always Sunny. That's just been a thing that has existed on television. It just felt like stepping into a completely different realm. And I'd never written for live action before.
Yeah.
You know, not like that. Not like in a proper live action writer's room. Mm-hmm. Which I was terrified about, by the way, especially because you hear so many horror stories.
You do, yeah.
It was the funniest people of all time, but also so kind. And it was just fucking great. Everyone was so great. Like
You're also very open to collaboration, so it makes sense you had a good experience.
Yeah, I try to be. I definitely try to be. And I learned a lot.
Yeah.
And Rob is I really wish I could, I've said this a couple of times, but I wish I could photocopy him and put him as a showrunner. Because he is the perfect mixture of having vision and openness.
Yeah.
Which you really need both.
It's rare, though. It's rare to find.
So rare. Because either people are control freaks or they have no idea what the fuck they're doing.
They think that vision has to be adhered to a T. So to have the vision and the openness is
the
like
perfect
the perfect
mixture.
Combination. Makes sense why you'd want to photocopy him.
Yeah, I'll have little cardboard standees of Rob McElhenney. And he also is like very serious about the job, but also knows that like we're not curing cancer. Mm-hmm. So no one needs to get screamed at.
Yeah.
Doesn't need to be any like crazy behavior.
The stakes are not life-threatening.
Yeah, we're all good people that are trying really hard to make something good.
Yeah.
And you might as well just have fun making it because that's the best part.
Yeah.
So it was a really, really good experience. I feel fucking crazy grateful. So grateful to have been a part of it.
You're on a cool path. You're on a very cool path. You're carving out a lot of space for yourself, which I find interesting. I've always admired that about you, for how young you are. I'm almost 10 years older than you, dude.
Are you?
I'm 36 years old. You're 28, right?
Yeah, I'm 28.
You got so much to look forward to. I was explaining to you earlier about how the day you turn 30, hangovers become a 3-day ordeal.
Yep.
I can't wait till you get there. Yeah, you're fine.
I know. Right now I can have 3.
You're set.
Yeah. I know. It's going to be so immediate, too. I can tell. I just know. Yeah. My body, I'm going to be, you know how they have those jokes about Asian women that they look 20 until they hit 70 and then they just crumble? They just completely become like a Quasimodo?
I don't know a ton of those jokes, but I know what you're talking about.
Okay, maybe it's just, this common joke that everyone knows about? Maybe it's just if you have an Asian mother.
Yeah.
But I feel like that's going to happen to me, but when I'm 30. Physically. I'll like inside of me. I feel like I'll keep it together, but I'll feel like I'm hunchbacked.
Yeah. You're like the red woman.
Ah, yes.
Spoilers.
It's all been out.
It's out.
It's out.
It's out.
Come on.
Ashley, I love you. I look forward to
Brian.
absolutely everything that your gigantic hands touch.
Have we ever compared hands?
Dude, this is not going to go well. I have freakishly large hands. Wow, dude. Holy cow. Wait, you could fit both of them on my one hand. Fuck trading haircuts. Let's trade hands for a day. I want you to walk around with these hands for a day, and I want to walk around. I want to walk around with yours. The Naked and Famous was conceived by Joaquin Simo while working at Death & Co. in New York City. He described it as the love child of a classic last word and a paper plane, conceived in the mountains of Oaxaca. Thanks to its straightforward construction and high flavor payoff, it has emerged as a quick bartender's choice in New York City. We're going to shake and double strain this drink, so we'll be using our shaking tins and our Hawthorne and tea strainers. This drink is best served in a Nick and Nora glass or a coupe. Today we're gonna use a coupe. It's best to use it chilled, so put it in the freezer a few minutes before you make the drink. Here's what you'll need for this drink. Mezcal, Aperol, yellow chartreuse, and some fresh lime juice. First, we're gonna add 3/4 ounce lime juice to our shaking tin. Then, 3/4 ounce of Aperol, 3/4 ounce of yellow chartreuse, and 3/4 ounce of mezcal. Up next, we're gonna add ice to the large tin. Then pour your ingredients over the ice and lock the tins. Then you're gonna shake all the ingredients. Then we're gonna double strain into our chilled coupe glass. And there you have it, a Naked and Famous. It's sort of like a thoughtful mezcal margarita. It's sort of like a flawless fucking cocktail is what it is. Thank you so much for watching Between the Sheets. New episodes are uploaded to YouTube on Wednesdays, and if you want to watch the show live, it airs at 7 p.m. Pacific at twitch.tv/Critical Role. Thanks for joining us.